There are many red flags in a woman, but then there are deeper truths, Stoic truths, that whisper, this is not your path. This is your test. Not everything that hurts you is abuse. Not everything that seduces you is love. And not everything that stays is worth keeping. So, what does Stoicism, the philosophy of clarity, sovereignty, and self-respect, say about the kind of woman a man must walk away from? She may be beautiful, captivating. She may laugh with your friends, post inspiring quotes on Instagram, and tell you she loves you. But when the mask slips, it's the way she disrespects your values, your vision, and your presence that reveals the truth. A Stoic does not react impulsively, but he does observe relentlessly. And what you observe in a woman says far more than what you hear. The patterns, the tests, the energy, they don't lie. So we're not talking about petty things like hobbies, preferences, or clashing music tastes. We're talking about character, about temperament, about the signs of misalignment so deep that if you ignore them, they will erode your soul over time. The Stoics didn't have TikTok, but they had clarity. They saw clearly that a man who does not guard his inner citadel will be ruled not by his values, but by whatever woman flatters his wounds. And that's what this video is about. The type of woman who doesn't just test you, but slowly disorients you, who doesn't challenge your ego to grow, but feeds on your boundaries to fuel her own chaos, who appears to love you, but only when you shrink. We begin now with the first red flag, and this one is not loud. It's subtle. It hides in everyday arguments, in sarcasm, in public teasing. But if she does this consistently, a Stoic would say, leave. Sign 1, the red flag of mockery. She mocks you, not in jest, but in pattern. She jokes about your ambitions. She teases your spiritual path. She ridicules the ideas that light you up, the books you read, the thoughts you share, the quiet ways you're trying to evolve. She does this playfully, of course, but it always stings. Stoicism teaches that what you tolerate becomes your reality. And one of the greatest forms of disrespect is subtle mockery, disguised as flirtation or banter. A Stoic man knows that laughter is sacred, but laughter that comes at the cost of your self-worth is poison in disguise. Marcus Aurelius didn't say, let people walk over your dreams. He said, be tolerant with others, strict with yourself. But tolerance does not mean accepting slow emotional erosion. When your woman constantly undercuts your growth, even in small ways, when her jokes aren't balanced with reverence, when she never mirrors your excitement, only rolls her eyes at it, that's not just incompatibility, that's a soft war against your purpose. And the worst part? You'll start shrinking to fit her comfort. You'll dull your light to avoid her eye rolls. You'll hesitate before sharing your insights. You'll become quieter, less daring, less expressive. Not because she told you to, but because her energy trained you to. A Stoic man does not allow emotional manipulation to define his path. He notices when a woman is slowly pulling him away from his essence. And the moment he realizes it, he doesn't explode. He doesn't try to fix her. He doesn't seek revenge or validation. He walks away. Because a woman who mocks your essence is not a partner. She's a prison with lipstick. You are not here to be laughed at by the one person who should believe in you the most. You are here to live in alignment with your values and walk beside someone who protects that sacred space. Your relationship should be your fortress, not your battleground. And if mockery is her language of love, then love is not what you're experiencing. It's ego, it's control, it's subtle contempt. And the longer you stay, the less of yourself remains. This is your first sign. If she does this, Marcus would not have debated. He would have bowed, blessed the moment, and left. Sign 2, she uses emotion as a weapon, not a window. Stoicism never tells you to suppress emotion. It teaches you to understand it, to wield it, never to drown in it. So when your woman uses her emotions not as invitations to connection, but as weapons for control, that's not love. That's a battlefield of the unconscious. Pay attention. If every conversation becomes a storm, if every disagreement spirals into tears, threats, or silence, If your calmness is reframed as coldness while her chaos is excused as passion, you're not in a relationship, you're in a loop where your nervous system is always bracing for the next emotional collapse, a loop where you become the container for feelings she refuses to regulate on her own. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But when you're dating someone who constantly explodes emotionally, you stop imagining peace altogether, because there is no safe space to speak, no disagreement that doesn't end with guilt, no truth that doesn't trigger punishment. And here's the catch. If you grew up around emotional volatility, this might feel normal. You might think her intensity is depth, her unpredictability, passion, her emotional outbursts. She just cares so much. But look deeper. Are you being pulled toward love or held hostage by it? A Stoic man learns to spot this pattern early. He notices when emotional expression is no longer about truth, but about power. Because when every tear becomes a threat, when every silent treatment becomes a leash, when every small request spirals into chaos, it's not connection, it's coercion. And here's the brutal truth. You will slowly become the parent she never had. You will start walking on eggshells. You'll avoid topics. You'll sugarcoat truths. You'll filter yourself just to keep the peace. But peace that demands your silence is not peace, it's self-erasure. A Stoic man doesn't run from emotion, but he also refuses to be ruled by someone else's. If her storms never end in clarity, if her apologies always come too late, if your calmness is used against you, then walk, because her feelings may be valid, but so are yours. And if only one person's emotions are ever honored, that's not a partnership, that's a performance. You are not built to be someone's emotional punching bag. A real woman brings her storms as a conversation, not a punishment. She opens, she listens, she meets you in stillness. Anything less, and you're not dating, you're surviving. Sign 3, she resents your freedom and calls it disconnection. She says you're too distant, too calm, too self-contained, but you know you're just free. Free in your mind, free in your choices, free from needing external validation to feel whole. And that, my friend, terrifies her. Because a man who doesn't need to be controlled can't be controlled. And in relationships rooted in insecurity, freedom isn't respected. It's resented. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." But you've chosen your here. You've chosen presence. You've chosen a life anchored in values, not volatility. And when a woman hasn't anchored herself, she'll mistake your freedom for threat. She'll say you don't love her because you don't obsess over her. She'll say you're cold because you don't over-explain. She'll say you're emotionally unavailable, when in reality, you're emotionally disciplined. She'll turn your peace into a problem, because she doesn't know how to live without chaos. And if you're not careful, you'll start performing again. You'll start being louder, more reactive, more romantic, not from authenticity, but from survival, just to make her feel secure in a war she's fighting with herself. But a Stoic man remembers, the moment your freedom becomes the enemy, the relationship has already become a cage. A true partner doesn't fear your independence. She respects it. She mirrors it. She builds her own wholeness while honoring yours. And when two free people love each other, there is no control, no begging, no tests, only choice, only clarity. But the insecure woman, she sees freedom as abandonment. She sees stillness as detachment. She sees your groundedness and feels invisible beside it. And in response, she'll try to anchor you not with love, but with guilt. She'll say you're never there, that you don't show emotion, that you're too zen. But ask yourself this, is your peace making her feel unloved? Or is it simply revealing how unloving her relationship with herself truly is? A Stoic man doesn't dim his peace to keep someone else lit. He shines as an invitation, not a sacrifice. So if she resents your wholeness, if she tries to confuse your clarity with coldness, if she shames your peace because she can't find her own, you already have your answer. Freedom isn't the problem. Her fear is, and your job isn't to fix it. Your job is to stay rooted, stay whole. And remember, the woman who truly sees you won't fear your stillness. She'll meet you in it. Sign 4. Her tests never end because your boundaries scare her. She doesn't test you because she's evil. She tests you because deep down, she doesn't trust safety. She only knows survival. And when a man brings groundedness, when he won't play her emotional games, that scares her more than chaos ever did. You see, in Stoicism, boundaries are not punishments. They are protection of virtue. They're how a man preserves his time, his energy, his direction. But when you set boundaries with a woman who's ruled by her reactivity, she doesn't feel protected. She feels rejected. So she'll push harder. She'll flirt with jealousy games. She'll withdraw affection to see if you'll chase. She'll make passive-aggressive comments just to provoke a rise out of you. And when you respond with calm, unshakable clarity, she calls you cold. She doesn't know she's begging for a boundary. She doesn't know she's testing you to feel something that should have been cultivated within her all along. A Stoic man sees the trap, and he doesn't flinch, because he knows the test is not about her. It's about him. It's about who he chooses to be when love becomes conditional, when peace is weaponized, when calm is mistaken for weakness. You are not here to pass her tests. You are here to live your truth. You don't yell. You don't beg. You don't chase chaos and call it love. You enforce your boundary once. You make your value clear once. You communicate your line once. After that, you watch, not because you're punishing, but because you're listening to her actions, not her apologies. If she crosses your line again, she's showing you her capacity. If she plays the same game again, she's revealing her wound and her unwillingness to face it. And here's the hardest truth. You can't love someone into maturity. You can't over-explain someone into emotional responsibility. You can't sacrifice your self-respect into her self-awareness. A woman who cannot honor your boundaries is a woman who will never feel safe in your presence, because safety to her is still unfamiliar. And until she chooses to do the inner work, she will keep testing men until someone fails her hard enough to feel justified in her suffering. But that someone won't be you. You're not here to be her therapist. You're not here to be her emotional punching bag. You're here to live your philosophy. And sometimes that means leaving the test unfinished. Sign 5. She's not crazy. She's just unconscious. Stoicism teaches us, you always own your response, but not their behavior. And here's where that hits hardest. Most men stay in toxic relationships far too long, not because they're weak, but because they think she's just going through something. She's not usually like this. She had a hard childhood. She's just stressed right now. She'll come back around, and slowly, you stop living in reality and start living in her potential. You rationalize her mood swings. You normalize her outbursts. You excuse her cruelty because you've confused pain with depth. But brother, listen to this. She's not crazy. She's just unconscious. She hasn't faced her shadow. She hasn't integrated her past. She hasn't looked herself in the mirror long enough to stop projecting her pain onto you. And your love won't fix that. No matter how patient, how generous, how forgiving you are, you cannot save someone from a storm they are choosing not to leave. You are not her lifeline. You are her mirror. And mirrors, if she's not ready to see herself, will be smashed. You get blamed. You get punished. You get left with questions like, what did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Was I too cold? Too honest? Too calm? But you weren't too anything. You were just present. And presence terrifies someone still addicted to distraction. A Stoic doesn't call her crazy. A Stoic sees her clearly and steps back, because her inability to be calm is not an invitation for you to become chaotic. Her refusal to reflect is not a reason for you to lose your clarity. And her storms are not your calling. She is not broken. She is asleep. And you cannot wake someone up with love songs. You can only walk away with silence, so she can hear her own echo. Because if she doesn't hear your words, she might finally feel your absence, and that not arguments, not explanations, not therapy speak, might be the only thing that ever invites her into self-awareness. Not because you punished her, but because you refused to punish yourself by staying. You did not fail her. She failed herself. Let her go. You're not leaving a woman behind. You're leaving the boy in you who thought he could fix her. Sign 6. Why her chaos isn't love, but your nervous system thinks it is. Here's the hardest truth to swallow. You don't stay with her because it feels good. You stay because it feels familiar. The tension, the eggshell walking, the moments of affection followed by silence, then explosions, then make-up connection. It doesn't feel abusive, it feels intense. It doesn't feel wrong, it feels deep. It doesn't feel unhealthy, it feels like home. But that's not love. That's your nervous system stuck in a loop. You think you're in a relationship, but you're actually in a trauma bond. And here's what Stoicism reveals. Even though they never used those words, if your peace depends on her behavior, you've handed her your life, and a man without peace is a man without power, because the Stoics didn't equate love with adrenaline. They equated love with virtue. Does she help you grow in truth or shrink in fear? Does she support your clarity or thrive on your confusion? Does she create safety or does she create instability and call it passion? The Stoic man wakes up when he realizes, I'm not in love with her, I'm addicted to surviving her. And the woman who thrives on your survival mode, she doesn't want a healed man. She wants a reactive man. Because if you ever fully come into your calm, your truth, your power, she loses her grip. So she stirs the chaos. She makes a problem out of your peace. She calls your healthy distance abandonment. She calls your clarity cruel. She calls your boundaries cold. Why? Because her survival only works if you're off-center. But here's the thing. The more you heal, the less entertaining her storms become. You stop craving resolution with someone who creates the conflict. You stop needing to be right in the eyes of someone who's committed to misunderstanding you. You stop justifying your character to someone whose self-worth depends on making you feel like the villain. That's not love. That's a loop. And your freedom starts when you stop playing the same scene, expecting a different ending. The Stoic man understands. Love is not chaos that calms down for a moment. Love is peace that doesn't need to prove itself. And if she can't give you peace, it's not your job to build her one. It's your job to walk toward the one you've already built inside yourself. Sign 7. What she says versus what her nervous system is screaming. She'll say she wants a stable man. She'll say she craves safety. She'll say she admires your calm. But then, when you give her that, she pulls away. She picks a fight. She mocks your peace as weakness. She throws a wrench in the calm just to see if you'll chase. Why? Because her words are coming from her lips, but her decisions are coming from her nervous system. And if her nervous system is still wired for chaos, still running on the fear of abandonment, still addicted to adrenaline and emotional spikes, then your steadiness won't soothe her. It will confuse her. It won't make her feel safe. It will make her feel bored, because your presence doesn't match her inner world. So she subconsciously destroys it to recreate what does. This is what Stoicism saw all along, that until a person becomes aware of their emotional patterns, they will seek out experiences that mirror their inner pain and call it love. So no matter how loyal you are, how emotionally available you are, how many second chances you give, you will always lose to her own unhealed past. You're not competing with other men. You're competing with her fear of intimacy. You're competing with the voice in her head that says love equal to volatility. You're competing with a nervous system that mistakes your emotional availability for a threat. And you can't win that game, because to win, it would require you to lose yourself, to raise your voice when you don't want to abandon your calm just to keep her around, to become reactive just so she doesn't feel alone in her chaos. That's not a relationship. That's emotional regression. And the man who values peace can't sacrifice his nervous system just to keep a trauma bond on life support. So yes, she'll say you're too detached. She'll say you don't care enough. She'll say you're emotionally unavailable. But deep down, she's terrified of the truth your calm exposes. Because once she's with a man who doesn't match her chaos, she has to sit with the one person she's been running from, herself. And unless she's ready for that mirror, she'll keep smashing it. The Stoic man, he doesn't get angry about this. He doesn't try to fix her. He simply steps out of the illusion and into a life that no longer revolves around someone else's unhealed wounds. Sign 8, the most dangerous type of woman, Stoic warning signs. She doesn't scream. She doesn't break things. She doesn't threaten to leave. In fact, she's calm, composed, mature. But something in her energy feels off. And that's because she's mastered not emotional regulation, but emotional manipulation. This is the woman the Stoics warned us about. Not the loud one, not the chaotic one, not the dramatic one, but the one who has learned to control situations through silence, through withholding affection, through subtle digs and jokes that never land quite right. She makes you doubt yourself without ever raising her voice. She makes you apologize without ever saying you did something wrong. She creates the illusion of peace while quietly pulling all the strings. And if you're not anchored in your own clarity, you won't even notice the power shift until you find yourself hesitating to speak, walking on eggshells, wondering why your confidence disappeared. That's when you realize you're not in a relationship. You're in a silent war. The Stoics knew that manipulation thrives in the absence of awareness, that when a man forgets his inner standard, he starts measuring his worth based on someone else's moods. He calls it respecting her boundaries. But really, he's being trained to please, to avoid conflict, to self-abandon in exchange for temporary harmony. And here's the brutal truth. A woman who uses silence as a weapon knows exactly what she's doing. She's not waiting to feel better. She's waiting for you to break. And when you do, when you fold, over-explain, chase, or apologize just to get her warmth back, she wins. But what she gains in control, she loses in respect. Because no woman can truly admire a man she can manipulate. And that's where the Stoic man takes a different path. He sees the game. He doesn't play it. He doesn't punish her. He doesn't engage. He simply refuses to surrender his peace to anyone's need for psychological control. Because for him, clarity is non-negotiable. And any woman who threatens that, no matter how beautiful, sweet, or sophisticated, must be met with distance, not devotion. Not out of cruelty, but out of honor. You can't build love on a battlefield. And you can't lead a life of virtue in the arms of someone who profits from your confusion. Sign 9. She punishes your strength, rewards your weakness. A woman who cannot face her own shadow will always attack yours. She doesn't hate your confidence. She fears it. She doesn't dislike your leadership. It threatens her control. She doesn't criticize your purpose. She envies the clarity she doesn't have. And this is where so many men go wrong. They think they're doing something wrong, when in reality, they've just stopped being pliable. See, in the early stages, this type of woman will praise your power. She'll call you driven, masculine, passionate. But the moment that power doesn't serve her narrative, she'll start trying to chip away at it. Not directly, not with open defiance, but through subtle erosion. She'll make comments like, "Oh, must be nice to be so sure of yourself," or "You're always so intense," or the classic, "Why can't you just relax and go with the flow?" And each time, if you're not careful, you'll start shrinking just a little, laughing off your goals, questioning your instincts, making yourself less, so she can feel like more. And that is where your sovereignty begins to rot. The Stoics taught, what you tolerate in silence becomes your standard in life. When you allow a woman to slowly condition you to suppress your masculine essence, you're not compromising, you're submitting. And what does she do in return? She rewards the parts of you that are safe, the agreeable, the passive, the uncertain. She gives validation not when you are strong, but when you are small enough to control. She makes you feel chosen, not because she loves who you are, but because she loves that you can be molded. And if you let this dynamic run unchecked, you'll soon forget who you ever were before her. That's how psychological castration happens, not in one dramatic moment, but in hundreds of micro-abandonments of self. You think it's love. It's not. It's conditioning. And here's the Stoic path out. You don't confront her with rage. You confront yourself with truth. You ask, what parts of me am I betraying just to stay accepted here? Why do I equate her attention with my worth? And what am I afraid will happen if I stop complying? Because here's what most men don't realize. A woman who punishes your strength will never respect your submission. She may tolerate it. She may use it, but she will never admire it. And a man without respect in a relationship is not a partner. He's a prisoner. Sign 10. The quiet power of walking away. A man who knows when to leave is a man who has already arrived. He's not running. He's not punishing. He's remembering. Remembering that his soul was never meant to shrink for love. That compromise does not mean self-erasure. That respect, once gone, cannot be negotiated back with more effort. And yet, most men stay, not because they're happy, but because they're afraid. Afraid of being alone, afraid of starting over, afraid of not finding someone better. But the Stoics would ask, what is the price of staying unfree? And who are you becoming in the process? Because every time you stay in a relationship where your truth is muted, where your instincts are mocked, where your strength is punished, you are training your nervous system to accept mediocrity as love. You're teaching your psyche that intimacy means walking on eggshells. You're hardwiring the belief that masculinity must always be softened, or else it will not be loved. But love is not meant to weaken you. It's meant to reveal your essence. If she cannot handle your fullness, your vision, your fire, your depth, she is not your person. She is your pattern, and your patterns are not partners. They are loops, designed to wake you up through repetition. The Stoic path is not about avoidance, it's about clarity. You see the dynamic for what it is, not through anger, but through awareness. You recognize that her inconsistency is not a mystery to solve. It's a symptom of her own unhealed chaos. You stop explaining your worth. You stop negotiating your standards. You stop giving emotional CPR to a woman who doesn't want to breathe in the truth of who you are. And that's when the real shift happens. You stop waiting for her to get it. You stop hoping she'll change. You stop treating her potential as your spiritual project. Instead, you rise. You step into the rare air of masculine sovereignty. You walk, not as a threat, but as a standard. And here's the paradox. The moment you walk with self-possession is the moment every woman who couldn't tame you suddenly calls you intimidating. That's not intimidation, that's presence. That's what it looks like when a man reclaims his power, not to dominate the world, but to finally stop begging for crumbs inside of it. So, let her call you harsh. Let her call you cold. Let her say you've changed, because if you've truly changed, she won't recognize you. And that, my brother, is progress. Sign 11. When she feels you can't be moved, there's a moment when she'll test you. She won't announce it. She won't even be conscious of it. But it will come. Subtly, sharply, undeniably. Maybe she pulls away emotionally. Maybe she withholds approval. Maybe she criticizes something she once admired. Not to hurt you, but to see you. To see if your strength is real, or if it's a performance for her gaze. And in that moment, your nervous system will want to respond, to prove your worth, to chase her validation, to bend yourself just enough so she'll come back. But that's the trap, because once you bend, she knows you can be moved not by truth, but by need. And the man who can be moved by need will always be controlled by it. The Stoics had a word for this: apatheia, not apathy. but a state of inner unshakability. It meant living from a place so centered, so undisturbed by the noise of others, that you could meet any test with stillness, because true power doesn't shout, it doesn't chase, it doesn't explain, it just is. This is the kind of presence women can feel in their bones, not because it's aggressive, but because it's rare. You're not seduced by her curves, you're not flustered by her silence, you're not derailed by her mood swings, you are anchored. And here's the paradox: the more unmovable you are in your essence, the more the right woman softens, not because you demand it, but because her nervous system finally relaxes. It knows it's met truth, not chaos, not games, not a man playing a part just to be liked, but a man who doesn't flinch when tested, a man who chooses love, but does not need it. That's the man who awakens her deepest feminine, not through charm, but through clarity, because when you no longer orbit her emotions, she finally sees you, not as a rescuer, not as a mirror, but as a force. And at that point, she has a choice: rise to meet you, or fall away. Either way, you're at peace, because you no longer ask, does she want me? You ask, does this align with who I am? That's sovereignty. That's apatheia. That's the moment she realizes you are no longer a man she can shape. You are a man she must meet. Sign 12. She's not testing you. She's testing herself. When she pushes, when she pulls, when she flips from warmth to distance, it's easy to think she's testing you. But what if she's testing herself? What if she's not trying to see if you're worthy, but trying to see if she is? If she's finally ready to surrender to something real, if she can finally trust a masculine presence that doesn't vanish when it isn't praised. Because here's the truth no one teaches men. A woman doesn't just need your strength. She needs to believe in it. Not in the muscles, not in the money, not even in the charisma, but in your spine, your boundaries, your grounded, conscious refusal to betray yourself. Because in her world, men bend, they perform, they submit to her beauty, they orbit her moods. And she's exhausted by it, not because she wants to dominate, but because no one has met her with depth. So she tests, not to destroy, but to know if you'll collapse when the warmth fades, to know if your love is real or just approval-seeking in disguise. And when you don't collapse, when you stand calmly in yourself, unafraid of her rage, unaffected by her silence, unimpressed by her seduction, something ancient awakens in her, not fear, not rebellion, but respect, because now she knows. You're not reacting to her, you're reflecting her, and in that reflection, she sees a man who doesn't chase, who doesn't fix, who doesn't need to be chosen. A man who chooses himself. That's when she feels safe, not because you said the right words, but because your being speaks louder than anything. You are stable, you are still, you are sovereign. And the woman who has lived her whole life feeling emotionally unsafe will feel that in her nervous system, not just as attraction, but as reverence, because now she's not dealing with a boy needing her love to feel whole. She's standing before a man who has already come home to himself. She's not just testing your strength, she's asking the question her soul has never gotten an answer to. Can I finally stop performing? If the answer is yes, she softens. If it's no, she leaves. But either way, you stay whole, because you weren't here to be tested, you were here to witness her, yes, but more importantly, yourself. Sign 13. She doesn't want to control you. She just doesn't trust you yet. Most men mistake it for drama, her control, her sharpness, her endless questions, her need to know everything. But what if it's not about control? What if it's about safety? You see, when a woman doesn't feel safe, emotionally, spiritually, energetically, she won't relax. She won't soften. She won't trust. Instead, she'll try to contain you. Not because she wants to be your mother, but because she doesn't trust you to father yourself. That's what most men miss. She's not trying to lead, she's trying to survive. Because every time you say one thing and do another, every time you collapse into people-pleasing just to avoid conflict, every time your energy wavers and your purpose disappears the moment she gets upset, she feels it, and her nervous system screams, "I'm not safe." So she takes over. She nags. She questions. She demands to know what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're hiding. Not because she wants to control, but because you haven't shown her that she doesn't have to. It's not about being alpha. It's not about being aggressive. It's about being anchored. Can you sit in your truth without flinching? Can you hold your boundary without rage? Can you disagree without detaching? Because here's what women rarely say, but always feel. A man who avoids conflict cannot protect her. A man who needs her approval cannot hold her. A man who makes her his purpose will eventually resent her for it. So she resists. She pushes. She gets cold. And you call her difficult. But really, she's disappointed. Not in you. In the promise of you. In the man she thought you were when she first met your potential. The man who stood tall in his power. The man who didn't shrink when she got emotional. The man who didn't need her, but chose her. That's who she misses. And if that man never existed, if he was just a mask you wore to gain her affection, she'll feel that betrayal in her bones. So, no, she doesn't want to control you. She wants to trust you. To trust that you can lead without domination. To trust that you can feel without crumbling. To trust that your love isn't a leash, it's a choice. Because when she does trust you, when she feels your steadiness through the storm, when your eyes say "I've got me" before they ever say "I've got you," she lets go. She drops the armor. She sheds the fire. She stops managing and starts melting. And you get to witness something few men ever will. The full bloom of the feminine. Safe, surrendered, alive. But it doesn't start with her. It starts with you. The fire that doesn't burn. How stoic masculinity awakens the feminine. Most men think that being stoic means being cold. But Stoicism, real Stoicism, isn't about emotional repression. It's about emotional mastery. The kind that allows you to stand in the fire of a woman's chaos and not flinch. The kind that allows your presence to say, "This moment will not move me." When Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't writing a dating manual, but he might as well have been. Because that is the foundation of attraction. You think she wants muscles. You think she wants money. You think she wants status. But what she really wants is to know that her storm won't sink your ship. That her emotions, her moods, her fluctuations, no matter how intense, will not make you abandon yourself. That's what she's really testing. Not you, but your center. Because every woman knows this truth, even if she can't say it. If your emotional state depends on hers, you are not safe. Not for her, not for a family, not even for yourself. So she pulls, she pushes, she provokes. Not because she's cruel, but because she's subconsciously checking. Is your masculinity real or rented? Will you meet her tears with fear? Will you collapse the moment she withholds affection? Will you lose your grounding just to gain her approval? If so, she can't trust you. Because a man who is led by her emotions can never lead with his own presence. But when you stop reacting, when you breathe before you speak, when you stand there, grounded in your body, rooted in your values, even as she storms, even as she tests, that's when something ancient in her starts to exhale. Because finally, she's met something immovable, not stubborn, not arrogant, not emotionally dead, but stoic, still, spacious, undisturbed. And that, my friend, that is what allows the feminine to open. Because she's not looking for a man who silences her. She's looking for a man who doesn't shatter in the face of her truth. A man who can hold the weight of her emotions, Not solve them, not fix them, not analyze them, but simply be with them. Like a mountain is with the wind, like the ocean is with the moon. Constant, present, unmoved. This doesn't mean you never express. It means your expression isn't reactive. It means you don't outsource your identity to her approval. It means your love is a gift, not a gamble. It means you know who you are, even when she doesn't. And that kind of man, he awakens something sacred in her, not just lust, not just attraction, but devotion. Because women don't trust men who perform power, they trust men who embody it. The kind of power that doesn't need validation, the kind of strength that isn't shaken by storms, the kind of depth that invites her to finally rest. And when she rests, you rise, not above her, but with her. Because true Stoicism is not about being above emotion, it's about being beneath it, like bedrock, supporting, grounding, holding, and in that stillness, something magical happens. She meets the part of you that cannot be moved, and she realizes, for the first time in her life, she's finally home. Her pattern is not your problem. Stop explaining yourself. You are not her therapist. You are not her father. You are not her fixer, and you are not responsible for explaining reality to someone who refuses to see it. Let that sink in, because if you're stuck with a woman who blames you for everything, who punishes your honesty, who twists your words, who turns every disagreement into a courtroom where you're always on trial, then stop asking what you're doing wrong and start asking why you're still trying to win a rigged game. The truth is, not every woman wants peace. Some want power, some want control, some want to recreate chaos because it's all they've ever known. And the moment you try to bring clarity, they punish it. They don't want a partner. They want a puppet, a man who agrees, a man who obeys, a man who silences his own intuition just to maintain the vibe. But here's what Stoicism reminds you. You are not obligated to participate in dysfunction just because you love someone. In fact, love without boundaries is just self-betrayal in a prettier outfit. You're allowed to say, "This isn't working." You're allowed to say, "I don't feel safe here." You're allowed to say, "I choose peace over performance." And the moment you say those words, the moment you walk away from the drama, from the manipulation, from the endless arguments that go nowhere, she will either wake up or double down, but either way, you win. Because the true battle was never between you and her. It was always between you and the version of you that thought you had to prove your worth to be loved. That version of you who thought, if I just explain it better, maybe she'll understand. If I just stay calm, maybe she'll change. If I just give more, maybe she'll see me. But she doesn't see you. She sees her projection of you. And nothing you say will change that until she chooses to confront her own patterns. So stop over-explaining. Stop defending your every move. Stop apologizing for your boundaries. You don't need a woman who needs to be convinced. You need a woman who already sees you. Because the right woman won't punish your truth. She'll meet it with her own. The right woman won't shame your stillness. She'll feel safe inside it. The right woman won't call your boundaries emotional immature. She'll honor them because she has her own. And until you meet her, walk alone. Not because you're hard, but because you're whole. This is the quiet strength Stoicism teaches. Not detachment, not coldness, but self-honor. The kind that refuses to play savior. The kind that doesn't beg to be understood. The kind that doesn't need to win the argument, because peace is the only win that matters. So if she keeps turning your love into a battlefield, let her fight herself. You don't have to be the casualty just to prove you cared. You are allowed to walk away from women who make chaos your normal. You are allowed to protect your inner ground. You are allowed to leave. And when you do, you don't lose love. You reclaim your dignity. The final stand, peace is your proof. Here's the most stoic truth of all. You don't need to scream your worth. You prove it by how you walk away from where it's forgotten. No rage, no revenge, no long explanation typed at 2 a.m. hoping she finally gets it. Just silence, stillness, and your soul intact. The final stage of masculine self-respect isn't fury. It's not bravado. It's not turning cold to punish her absence. It's the warmth of knowing you never lost yourself, even when you loved someone who tried to convince you that you should. You don't have to get bitter. You don't have to make her the villain. You don't have to dissect every moment to find closure, because your peace is the closure. Your silence is the final paragraph, and your decision to no longer entertain her confusion, that is your graduation. The Stoics would say, freedom is the only worthy pursuit. Everything else is slavery, and that includes slavery to the illusion of love, the kind where you're always proving, always pleasing, always performing for a woman who isn't looking at you, but at the story she's built in her head. No more. From this moment forward, you are not a performer. You are not a puppet. You are not a fix for someone else's chaos. You are a man, a sovereign soul, a full system of fire and stillness and depth that does not require a woman's approval to be valid. And yes, that might make you too much for the unconscious, too still, too direct, too emotionally regulated. But for the right woman, the woman who's done her own inner work, the one who doesn't punish boundaries but lives by them, you will not be too much. You will be home. But only if you walk away from the chaos that keeps trying to sell itself as passion. So let this be your final test. If she doesn't meet your peace with peace, if she plays games with your loyalty, if she turns truth into war and honesty into ammunition, then don't just leave quietly. Leave clearly, not with hate, not with shame, but with the full knowledge that this drama, this cycle, this emotional roulette is no longer who you are. You've grown, you've seen behind the mask, and now, as Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So let her stay where she is. Let her keep her war. Let her confuse your calm for cruelty. Let her spin her version of you to those who never met your soul. Because the ones who know you, the ones worthy of knowing you, will never require chaos just to feel alive. You don't need to be chosen. You need to choose yourself. And when you do, the entire game changes. Because you're no longer fighting to be seen. You're seeing yourself, not the broken version, not the pleasing version, not the chameleon who changed colors to fit her frame. You, in your essence, you, without apology, you, in stillness. And the man who chooses stillness over seduction, he doesn't just change his relationship, he changes his life. If this resonated, take a moment to subscribe. Drop a comment below, not for the algorithm, but to mark this chapter in your journey. If you made it this far, you're not just watching, you're remembering, returning, reclaiming your inner ground. So trust that the video YouTube shows you next, the one appearing now, is not random. It's the next doorway, the next layer, and it will meet you exactly where you are. We'll see you in the next depth. Depthoria continues.